All right, man, you're going to really enjoy this conversation. We have on the podcast today on this episode, Brent Crowe, Student Leadership University. He's the president of an amazing organization that's challenging students all over, not just this country, but all over the globe, truly, and is doing an incredible job of mobilizing and challenging students to step up, as he likes to say. He talks about this in this episode, about the little boy sitting down and the grown man standing up, about the little girl sitting down and the grown woman standing up, and he challenges students to go to another level in their leadership.
Yeah, if you're work any with this younger generations, not just the Gen Alpha, but really the younger generations, whether it be as a parent, a grandparent, or even just to work, being around them, a teacher, an influencer, anybody around these. It's just important to understand that teenagers 100 years ago have a lot of similarities to teenagers of today, but Brent does a great job showing, but they also have some real differences because they have a lot of challenges and difficulties and opportunities that we didn't have. And so, listen, Brent is an expert in this. He's an expert with these younger generations, and he's just going to speak real plainly to us as parents and things. I think you're really going to enjoy this, and so we're excited about you being here.
And one of the things I loved about the conversation, too, that I think our listeners will enjoy is he talks about the importance of storytelling and how important that is for your leadership, your family. He talks about sitting around the dinner table and telling stories and how people learn from stories. And if you're in leadership of any type, telling stories is so important. He talks about that. One thing I love about Brent and I love about this episode is you're learning from a highly intelligent man when it comes to this next generation and this next generation leading. And so I think our listeners will enjoy it.
Yeah, you're going to eat it up. So look, we're going to just want to say thank you for tuning in. We're going to get out of the way. Here comes Brent Crowe. You know, one of the things you learn in leadership or even just being a champion is you can influence a lot of lives, but if you can learn to influence the influencers, then you are really talking about multiplication. This guy right here, I hope parents tune in. I hope you share it with people who influence young people, because I don't know anybody in America, and I mean this with all, that's influencing this generation of teenagers like Brent Crowe and the Student Leadership University, and then all the things he does with student pastors. So, man, we are so honored to have you. We're going to have some fun, but, man, we want to pick your brain, and we want for parents to be able, one of the things we challenge our parents to do is to be champions in their parenting, is don't settle for mediocrity or the participation trophy. Go for the dadgum win with your kids. So, man, Brent, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Man, we're pumped because we've had an amazing weekend with our teenagers. But let's get started. First, I've introduced you, but you tell them about Student Leadership University, kind of y'all's impact, what y'all do really globally. It's amazing.
Yes, sir. It's an wonderful opportunity. Thank you for that introduction. All of it's true, by the way. I am the lead. I'm the Yoda of all things next gen, which is why I only wear a sport coat and with a pocket square to a podcast. But no, I do have the privilege of helping to lead our organization. Student Leadership University is this idea that kind of was conceived in the mind of a man that both you and I love deeply, Dr. Jay Strack, who founded our organization. But the idea was, what if we were to give students a 15 to 20-year head start in 3 areas? How do you think? How do you dream? And how do you lead? And we take a very different approach to leadership than most rooms would. And that idea gave birth to a leadership development journey called Student Leadership University. So it's a series of gatherings or conferences that travel around the world. So you come to SOU 101. We do those in Orlando or San Antonio or Southern California. And then we go to SOU 201 in Washington, D.C. SOU 301 is in London, Oxford, Paris, Normandy. 401 typically is Israel. This year it's Greece. But what we're doing is we're just trying to get students into, and this is so important. You're talking about champions, and I'm just making this observation. You have Winston Churchill, presidents, Billy Graham on the wall. You care about historical leadership. So taking students to the actual source where these events and these men and these women lived and changed history is the best way to learn. It's the hardest way. It's the most expensive way sometimes.
Yeah.
But a primary source experience is the best way to help a student get a 15-year head start. And how do you think? How do you dream? How do you lead at the feet of Jesus? And so we try to do that. We try to go to the places, not just read about them, not talk about them, not put them up on a screen, but we want to go to the places, study the people, study what happened, and interact with it that way. So we've been very blessed. We're 31 years old, and we've had 250,000 students go on the journey, and it's awesome, and we have lots of fun. And I'm the chief intern.
So say that again, 250,000 students.
Yes, sir.
So, folks, if you're wondering about this, so literally they take them to Orlando, Florida, and they don't just sit and lecture. Although there's a lot of teaching.
Yes, sir.
And they challenging, man. This is big time. This is big league stuff. Time management, y'all still do time management,
Yes, sir.
personality things, everything. But then they're going to then take them to DC on 201. Mm-hmm. And I remember last time I was there, the amount of generals, senators, congressmen and women that paraded through to speak into these teenagers was unbelievable.
Yes.
And then to go international and get to see Normandy, I mean, powerful, Israel, Greece. So it's a hands-on, powerful deal that I know you're very proud to be a part of.
Think about this, and this is just as you care deeply about the traits that are necessary to develop somebody to be a champion. In other words, to be the best that they can be. You care about patriotism. I care about patriotism. It's one thing to have the best person with the best voice get up and sing the best version of the national anthem with the best instruments and the best video background. But none of that can replace a student standing on Normandy, taking their shoes off, letting their feet touch the sand, and contemplating on how the gift of freedom and how freedom is not free, and that there are those who sacrificed for us to be able to, like, nothing replaces that. No. So that's that primary source kind of experience, and to me that's what you're trying to do in focusing on developing champions, and it's one of the best ways to learn to do it.
Man. Good stuff.
We saw that just this weekend. I mean, you spoke at our student conference, if you will, here at our church, and got to see so many students make their faith real by just stepping, into a real, authentic relationship with Christ. And you saw that this weekend come to play. But one of the things that I thought was so unique and amazing about this weekend is that, we saw so many students that will never grace the doors possibly ever of a church again. We hope that they do. But one of the things that made it so real is that they were 3-4 times listening to you speak in a church.
Poor students, those poor students.
Right. And I think to your point, I think making it real to them, and you take students from all over the country to make these places come to life. They see them in person. As you see so many students, I mean, you see tons of students. I mean, how many students are coming through your program just this year?
Thousands. On
the spot?
I don't know. It'll be somewhere around 8 or 9,000.
But that's what I want people to understand is, like, this is not just a couple hundred students. Like 8,000 or 9,000 students are coming through this program this year alone. And so when you think about that, what are you seeing in this next generation of students? I mean, especially coming hot off this weekend, but also you're an expert in all this, and that's why we want to pick your brain. What are you seeing in these students?
Well, Rocky Balboa said, if you want a champion,
great theologian.
If you want a champion on the wall, you got to have Rocky.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Only the clothes change. Yeah. So there's a lot that does change, but there's a lot that doesn't change. And so I have found that most of the research on how you connect with students, you say, what are you seeing in student ministries across the country? Most of the research on how you connect with students I've found to be inaccurate or wrong. You and I came up in an era, Pastor John, where it was, you can only hold a student's attention for this many minutes, and then you've got to change the environment and distract them with this, and then entertain them with that, and what I've found is that no, a student is willing to listen as long as they have an appetite and somebody's willing to present excellence, and so. That has not changed, and I don't think that'll ever change. I do think that students ask different questions. Now, we all will always ask, every human being, questions about meaning, questions about what is right and wrong, questions about and where I'm going to go after I die. All those questions are always asked throughout history. How we ask those questions does vary from generation to generation. So we are right now, what you see, if you look across the landscape, is you are seeing this weird, it only happens a couple times in your life, this crossover between the end of Gen Z and the beginning of Gen Alpha intersecting right now, and that's what's sitting in every student ministry across the country right now. It only happened for another year or two before and then it'll just be Gen Alpha. And so the question that student pastors, youth workers across the country are asking is, how do I connect with both at the same time? And the short answer, and there's a much more complicated, elongated answer than this, but the short answer is, tell the best story. He who tells the best story carries the room with any generation. So what we do a lot with our student pastors is focus on, yes, you need to know the Bible, study the Bible, be able to share, but the Bible is a story. So how do you present a story in the most compelling, engaging, magnetic way, and practice becoming a storyteller? I was always told, tell me if you ever heard this, Pastor, like, oh, it's so easy, just tell stories. Stories are just emotionalism. And I used to feel guilty about being a storyteller. And then I had a gentleman that is now in heaven, an amazing man of God, by the name of Dr. Bill Bright, who saw a lot more people come to Christ than anybody in our lifetime. Campus Crusade, founder of Campus Crusade for Christ. He, Billy Graham, and the Apostle Paul probably saw more people come to Christ than anybody else in history. And he was like, always tell the best story.
Oh, that's so good.
Don't be afraid to tell the best story. The best story carries the day, So,
when you think about, of course, Jesus, how he taught, he told the best stories. I mean, his parables. Then not only that, I always tell people, I get a lot of questions, especially from our young people. They show up all the time, just want to ask a question. Sometimes it's like, let's see if we can stump the preacher. And I call it stump the chump. And I'm saying, look, it's not going to be real hard, but they'll ask me. They just want to know. And I love to model Jesus. Jesus often answered a question with a question.
Right.
Because there's something very valuable, innate about them banging it out in their heads and working through it. And that's not new for this generation. I think it's always been that way because you're in the process of learning, you're absorbing, you're in that sponge lifestyle, life stage where it's just like, man, give me, feed me. So, but I love the idea of storytelling because you're right. Most people, you say you're not a public speaker, moms, dads. Instead of lecturing, maybe you would just sit down and say, hey, let me tell you a story.
Yeah.
And let me relate this to you.
Right.
And it takes some forethought and some plan. But again, you want your kid to receive what you're giving them, then do some preparation and think about how you can relate to them.
But the best storytellers are parents.
Oh, without
historically speaking, the best stories have always been parents. And for most of history, we learned as a species, sitting around a fire through oral tradition.
Yeah.
And that oral tradition it's called orality. You can actually study it in universities today. That oral tradition is the art of storytelling, typically around a fire, typically a parent or a grandparent to a child or to each other. And but the reason storytelling is more important now maybe than any other time in our lifetime is because as we move from a social age to an AI age to everything is not just sound bites, but the ability to sit in something longer than 30 to 60 to 90 seconds has become almost foreign to this generation. Yeah. But the better you can tell a story, the longer a generation that typically doesn't sit still, that is uncomfortable with boredom, that is uncomfortable with quiet, that is uncomfortable with the better you can tell a story, the most distracted generation ever will sit the longest and will lean in a way that others didn't have to. So
let me ask, so you've got to be intentional about, so talk to parents about, so I'm thinking about, without being crude or anything, but, they used to say we had more kids because we didn't, there wasn't TV, there wasn't all these things that, distract. Now, it's like you tell stories, but families don't just sit around fires like they used to. They're getting their stories from social media and these quick 30-second, 5-second things and just all over the place. How can parents intentionally do that? You had talked just today. Yes, by the way, we're in jackets and coats and pocket squares because it's a Sunday. We just had church. You guys that tune in, we normally a little more casual.
This is how champions dress.
This is how champions
Early
dress.
on, not one.
And so, Kevin didn't get the memo. We normally don't, but Brent coming in, we thought we got to put on jackets. So anyway, in honor of Dr. J.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. So how to give us some practical stuff to chew on there. How do you tell parents? Parents do this. You talked in your message today about daddy-daughter, guy time. Talk to us about that.
Well, to create a rhythm of storytelling in your family begins with creating an environment that facilitates storytelling. So one of the great books written in the last 10 years, and you've probably, is Atomic Habits by Stephen Bartlett, I think is his name. It's a book. It's not a Christian book, but it's a book about it's about habits, but it's about how to create systems that help facilitate the future version of yourself you want to be, which sounds like self-improvement, and it is to some degree. But the truth is we all want to learn how to create the right rhythms. Going to the gym starts with putting on your gym shoes. Or getting the right amount of sleep starts with going to bed on time. I mean, you got to take a step. So how do you put one step in front of the other? So environment is first. You create the right environment. At our house, there's two environments in which we tell stories. One is our dinner table, and we are very, very intentional about there's no technology at the table. There is no one person's at the table, then another person it's together. It's very intentional. Now, I got 6 kids. As kids are getting older in different places, different schedules, we have to be very guarded to go and schedule. So sometimes we have to schedule it. But we are all at the table at the exact same time. My children, now start to facilitate our dinner table, not so much with just eating, but with storytelling. Why? Because that environment has been reinforced over and over and over again, and the mind associates environments and experiences together. It's why when you sit in this chair with this mic, you're going, I'm about to do a podcast. Yeah. I associate this environment with that experience. So number one is environment. Number two is think in terms of memory. Culture, the best definition of culture is that culture is created through shared memory. We get that definition from the American Indians, the indigenous people in this country. When they try to describe the tribal culture, they go, it's a collection of memories. That's what creates culture. They're exactly right, by the way. Like once you do it, it's a distant memory. So how do you be intentional with sharing? Every story is a past memory. How do you be intentional with sharing a past memory? And so that intentionality requires reliving that memory in front of someone. So that means being honest about how you feel about the memory, the details of the memory, and knowing that in every story you've got to verbally paint a picture that includes all 5 senses. And if you can take the environment, create the parameters, create the rhythm, and then engage all 5 senses, that's kind of the beginning points of the art of storytelling, in my opinion. And then don't overanalyze. That's the last thing I would say. Share a memory. Share something from your childhood. Share something that you read. Share something that you experienced. Share something that you wish you would have experienced.
But I love that because you're telling parents to create space for that. And to your point is so many parents aren't creating the space because they've got so many other things telling them stories. Phones, computers, all this other stuff. And it's like, no, be intentional about creating the space to have story time in your family. And I think culture and families that get back to that's so much more healthy for them and their families.
All right, so why is this important? Let's connect it to the champions on the wall in the room. Billy Graham endorsed a book years ago called What's the Bible All About? You probably have it on your shelf, written by Henrietta Mears, an old British gal who wrote a book that was a layman's book to summarize the different books of the Bible and explain the Bible. When she got to Ecclesiastes, which is Ecclesiastes is like a beat poet smoked a joint and watched Lord of the Rings. I mean, it is a funky book. Yeah. But she's trying to explain this. There's a season for everything, along with some of these other statements, and this odd book. And she goes, the gift that God gives us is that He allows us to write the autobiography of our own soul. In other words, you're going to tell a story. Yeah. You get to write the story of your own soul. You can't choose where you're born, when you're born, how you're born, but you can choose the story you tell out of it. Yeah. And that's the gift God gives us. So to not be intentional about writing and then sharing that story And so if you see yourself through that light, you go, I am a storyteller.
That's so good.
Yeah.
So I think there's, and here's the thing, every one of us can be a futurist. You can look at your present environments and the systems that are coming out of it, i.e. the habits. You can predict where you'll be in another year based on what you're doing right now. So if there's not time, that reflects that you don't want this value in your home. If you want this value in your home, it's going to take some difficult decisions to make the time.
Mm-hmm. I think back to both my grandfathers were in World War II, and I lived for the time, no matter how old I was, a little boy, even in high school, when my grandfather would tell, he was in Patton's Army, he was an artillery sergeant, and when he would just tell us stories, it didn't matter what it was. It didn't have to be war stories, but I lived for that. Mm-hmm. I think about my own kids where I'm like, oh, they don't care. They don't want to hear from the old man. But when I start telling stories from my childhood, they're all ears. Mm-hmm. They are all in. To this day, my son will quote a story from his dad told, or my daughter will. I remember Dad telling this story. So I guess what Brent is reminding all of us. So just to speak practically to parents or anybody that's communicating with this next generation, whether it be employers. Just think about employers trying to hire these. Man, stories are so important. Mm-hmm. But I love what you said though. That's not new. Mm-hmm. There's nothing new about that.
Yes, sir.
There's nothing new. Mm-hmm. So I love the intentionality of that. And we talk all the time about champions. You've got to be intentional. It's just not going to happen by osmosis.
You've new,
got to intentional.
But more relevant than ever before because of the digital age that we now find ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's so good. So good. But parents can win so big if they'll just
big
be
time.
intentional about it.
Big time.
And I think the intentionality is what brings the win. I mean, because I think a lot of them just don't realize that they can win at this stuff. Because it is fighting against this culture and the social media that these kids are faced with, these parents are faced with. You have to fight to be intentional. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you can win and you can do it and be intentional with your families. It's good stuff.
Tell us, just as we're going here, I want to just say to parents and to everybody listening, let's say it to everybody, that unapologetically we're church people. I'm a pastor.
Yes.
That church, you need church. But your kids, your teenagers, your children, your whatever age needs church. Church is a very important thing. As a matter of fact, I think it's a critical thing. But talk to us about how you see churches and even organizations or whatever entity, how you see them best equipping the next gen. What's this next? What's this thing you're seeing? What as far as we got to get this in them, and here's how we do it. Give us some good insight into that, because you guys are doing it better than anybody in the world, and I'm not just saying that to wax eloquent. I mean that you got to give credit where credit is due, and you guys go out of your way to be the best year in and year out at equipping this next generation. Talk to us about how can we do that? How can we join in that and jump in that with you? Not just storytelling, but give us some more stuff.
Yeah, there's I'd say off the top of my head, there's 3 traits. So we like that word, traits. There's three. Yeah, they're good branding. There's 3 characteristics, traits that kind of have held true, at least in the last decade that I've been studying this. One is that the next gen leaders, whether it's a youth pastor or somebody, a volunteer in student ministry, but they're intentional about a system that gives a place for students to go, how can I become a leader? How can I go from being somebody who loves Jesus and I'm right here and I want to lean in to going, no, I want to take thinking and dreaming and leading at the feet of Jesus to the next level. So number one, they create systems. They create, whether it's a program, whether it's a rhythm, whether it's, hey, we're going to meet in this coffee shop once a week, we're going to read this book, and we're going to ask these questions. But they have a plan. So plan is number one. Number 2 is margin. And when I say margin, there is room in their organizational cultures for young leaders to, I'm not going to say thrive, I'm going to say try.
Okay.
In other words, there's a place for young leaders to begin to exercise their gifts. I tell student pastors all the time, what if your youth ministry was a lab where students began to creatively think about what do they want to be for the glory of God 10 years from now? Not if they just want to, like, it's almost like sometimes we preach and we teach, like, be a good disciple. If you want to go in ministry, this is the place to learn how to do that. But what if it were, I'm going to be an artist, I'm going to be a mom, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to go into the military, and this was the incubator, the lab where you could have creative thought. So there's, number one is there's a plan. Number two, there's margin. You create intentional margin that allows young leaders to exercise their gifts in such a way that there could be some trial and error, right? And then number three is celebration. Like, there needs to be a celebration, not of the present, but of one chapter in the story. So the healthiest next-gen ministries that do this are bringing people back that are maybe 4 or 5 years, a graduating class or two, whatever it is, into the future, and they're bringing them back and they're displaying their story and they're celebrating that in front of the present. And so plan, margin, celebration.
Nice. Very good.
That's good. When it comes to, I love what you said about that, because, and I do want to ask you this, because there are a lot of people that maybe aren't in ministry, but maybe leading an organization, or some people that listen to this that are, we've had people listen that are just teachers or educators, and what would you say, practically speaking, for them to start putting some of these things in motion to challenge in the next gen?
Well, if you, specifically an educator's got the odds stacked against them in some ways.
Yeah, you're right.
Seth Godin said in his book Linchpin, he was summarizing a lot of research on our educational system, primarily elementary level, and he said this: every child is born an artist, and we train it out of them in our educational system between the 3rd and the 5th grade, which is, kind of scary, you know. So nobody sees themselves through the lens of story and asking questions and being creative and what would I do for the glory of God if I knew I wouldn't fail. And so half the battle for a teacher is in a system that is designed to create almost clone-like students.
Yeah.
This curriculum, this day, this test, these, fill it in this way, move on to the next one, is to somehow help that student realize that they're not, and I'm going to use language that a teacher could use, that they're not one in a million, they're one in a creation. So not God language, but you are unique. And then number two, in an educational system, to help a student see themselves that they were created to be creative. So in other words, it's not just about plug and play, fill the blank in, move on to the next test, and move on to the next class, and move on. But there's help them to rediscover something about how God created them without maybe saying it that way, that is going to tap into something very creation narrative. There are 3 gifts given to us in the creation narrative: the gift of relationship, the gift of freedom. By the way, freedom had responsibility embedded into its definition from day one. And then number 3, the gift of creativity, which is the most overlooked creation gift. But God created all the birds of the air, beasts of the field, brought them to Adam to see, the Bible says, sat back and waited to see what he would call them. There's a moment in creation where God just waited because he wanted Adam to exercise a gift that he had given him. So help us, as teachers, helping a child go, know and rediscover something about how God created them, and that's priceless. So
that's good.
Man, I love this, and I hope you guys, thank you for tuning in today. And again, Brent is just helping us how we can. We all want to love and invest in the next generations. I mean, yes, who does? I mean, you start, especially the older you get, you start thinking about legacies that you leave behind. But you just want to see this, because they're our future, and of course I always say they're not our future, they're our now. And so we see that. I think about, you talk about teachers and even parents. I used to love to read a guy, and then he had an incredible focus on the family, a guy named Guy Dowd, who was Teacher of the Year back even
I think that was
before
the 80s.
My time, even before my time. But he's the one that famously said, I don't teach geometry, I don't teach honors. I think he was a English teacher. He said, I don't teach honors English, or I don't teach this. I teach 12th grade human beings. And he said, teachers must always remember that. Yeah. And I think what I would say to parents and to everybody trying to reach this next gen, don't lump them into, they're this Gen Alpha, so they only want, and listen, just understand they're human beings. They need to be loved. They want time. They want stories. I love that. And so I hope this is helping in just some way, maybe even just scratch an itch of saying, look, there's so much we could talk about here and there. But I want to unapologetically give Student Leadership University, SLU, a plug.
Thank you.
And how these folks can maybe through their church,
Yes, sir.
which is the best thing they can do, or even individuals, just come and be a part of Student Leadership University. 101 is in Orlando, Florida,
Yes,
San
sir.
Antonio, Texas, all these things. Listen, let me just say something. It's going to cost you, and it's an investment because they do high-level stuff. I'm talking behind-scenes, SeaWorld, big stuff. So, but anything worth doing, they're going to have to put some time and effort and energy
right.
into it. So talk to them about that real quick.
That's right. Well, they can find us online on I almost said the social media handle. I'm a product of this generation. But slulead.com is our website. And they can go at slulead.com and they can see all the different options or dates, I should say, options for SLU 101 conference, Student Leadership University 101. We call it our SLU 101 Dream Conference because we have a few different models that we've done. We do a month of SLU in Egypt now. And we spend most of September out in a desert in between Cairo and Alexandria with almost 2,000 Christian Egyptian students who are going through this journey, and they want to see revival in their. It's one of the coolest things I've ever been a part of. But anyways, if they go to our website, they can see all the different date options, register with their church or their group, or come as an individual, like you said, and just get started. Come spy out the land and see if it's good.
Well, and I can give personal testimony as Kevin can to the quality. My daughter was a great product of it, and I mean, just to look a young person in the eye like they do so well, and say you can be a leader. You it's not something you're born into. You can choose to be a leader and to be intentional about equipping this next generation. Because we really should, Kevin. We really should empower this next generation. Kevin's one of the best I've seen at that, and he's done a fabulous job empowering young people, teenagers, and just to believe in investing in them, and has such a knack for it. It's so relational. So
you might not want to put that out on the
on the
airwaves. He's not that good.
Not that good. And when he's he starts
good enough to
yeah. What's the old saying? Yeah, and when he's sober, he's amazing.
We've expunged his record.
He's okay. So
that's to your point. Is just shows you that anyone really can influence the next generation. This country boy from Louisiana, can influence some guys and influence people for Christian living or just being a leader and influencing their generation. Because I think one of the things, and we don't have a lot of time to talk about this, is one of the greatest, most rewarding things in leadership and ministry and everything is when someone you influenced starts influencing their peers. That to me is the biggest win and what real champions are. Because when you start seeing the people that you've influencing others,
that's called legacy.
And it's
legacy is not what you do; it's what other people do because of what you did. You're talking about legacy. Like it's one of the best traits of seasoned champions is that they care about legacy in a healthy way. Not will I be remembered, but will a vision continue through other people far after I'm gone.
And Brent, I think that's the greatest way to land the plane on this podcast, because moms, dads, coaches, administrators, leaders, you can influence the people around you. And you're going to leave, I like to say it like this, I've always said it like this, but you're going to leave tracks when you leave this earth. You're going to. And I want people to be able, when I leave this earth, to be able to look back and follow the tracks that I left for them, especially my kids, especially those that I've had the privilege of influencing. And man, you are leading the charge on that. And bro, we are.
I got a long way to go, but you're kind.
I love the legacy. That's
we are thankful for you. And hey, I just want to encourage you to continue listening to this podcast. We're going to continue to have wonderful guests.
The Lord's going to open some doors has already opened some doors. We've got this guy.
Oh, no.
And
listen,
and then continue.
I'm the opening act whose music studio paid for that scrub to be there before the big show that's going to be one of the future episodes. I'll just go ahead and tell you.
I had to preach a message one time, but after me was a legend preaching, literally, and Jerry Vines. And I've done some stuff before, Dr. Jay Strack before, and it's like, okay, I'm the opening act before the Beatles.
Yeah.
You're like, well, who was it? No, that's the point. No one knows
nobody
who it was.
knows.
Nobody knows who it was. So, well, that's not the case with you, bro. So real quick, before we land it, we like to kind of close with a little bit of chatter. So give us some champions that have influenced your life, people who were the best of the best, whether it be, whatever. For me, coaches, I didn't grow up in a Christian home. But my dad taught me how to work and my mother taught me some great things that were champions in my life. But coaches were a huge part of my life. They challenged me big time. But then I had some great godly men come along. Again, Jay Strack being one of those guys that poured in my life. But give us some of your champions. Give us some champions in your life.
I'll give you three. First, to honor where honor is due, my parents. So my mom and dad, greatest champions in my life. Primary word that comes to mind is patience, because I was a grade A knucklehead, like a lot of us. Second one, Dr. Bill Brown, who was the president of my college. I went to a little college called Bryan College in Dayton, Tennessee. He went on to be the president at Cedarville University and then went on to oversee the Colson Fellowship Program for the Colson Center. He's retired now, but this is a rabbit trail. We won't go down it, but I got arrested in college, should have been kicked out. I mean, grade A knucklehead. And everybody decided, who was an administrator in that college, to go, we're going to release this kid. We're going to pray for him, but we're going to let him go. There's consequence to sin. And one guy said, no, I'm going to keep him. And it happened to be the boss. And it was Bill Brown. And that was almost 30 years ago. And he and I are still close to this day. And so he's been a champion.
That's a champion. That's
now,
awesome.
A thought leader champion in my life would be Dr. John Lennox, who is a world-renowned mathematician, scholar, semi-retired now in his mid-80s, one of the last great evangelical minds to overlap with C.S. Lewis. And I've had the privilege of being in England and Oxford many times, listening to him lecture, and he actually has spoken many times to our students, and he'll continue to as long as his health holds up. But I'd never forget this, one of the greatest minds in the world, giving a report on AI, because he had just done a huge research thing for AI, and he looked out at about 450 students, and he goes, just never forget this, students. You are more valuable to God than a galaxy. So whatever happens with AI, it's infinitely less important than you are. And he's just been a thought leader. It's not like I'm buddies with him, but he's been a champion from a distant thought leader that I've looked up to, and just had such an appreciation for how he's interacted with non-Christian academics over the last 40 years.
Wow. And I love that. And I love the idea of, everybody wants to be valuable. And one of the greatest things you can do, I tell the story all the time. My son was, we were at practice at baseball, and my son was just every sport he touched. He was just good at it. And we were driving home one day, and his head just wasn't in it. I said, son, you got to get down on the ball. When you're throwing, you're flicking it. Man, I need you to stay. Man, when you're batting, you're not even loading right. You're not doing, son. And I went on, and finally he just stopped me. He goes, Dad, did I do anything right today?
Ooh.
And I determined at that point, I was no longer going to coach my kid. I was going to be dad. And you know what my greatest job as a dad was for me to let him know I believed in you. Son, I believe in you. I believe in you. I decided I'm going to let other people coach him up. I'm going to believe. I'm just going to believe. I'm going to be your cheerleader, because there's no one else that can cheer for you like I can. And that's what I'm going to do. And I think for this next gen and this
Can
gen.
Can I do one more?
Please.
Just really quick.
Please do.
I worked in a lumberyard growing up. For 4 years, I worked at the local lumberyard. There's only two types of people that work at the lumberyard: work release, and those who can't get a job anywhere else. Right?
I too.
So
lumberyard.
4 years.
I've all had jobs like
loading,
that. Yeah.
But the guy who owned the lumberyard was a deacon at our local church. And we didn't have a lot of money. My parents couldn't afford to send me to college. And one day, he's sitting in his office, and he looks out on the yard, and he sees me in the midst of all these guys working. And he said the Lord just impressed upon his heart. And he picked up the phone in his office, called my dad, and said, "Where's Brent going to college?" And he goes, "We're trying to figure all that out." And he goes, "Well, tell him to figure it out, and I'll cover it." And the local lumberyard, the guy that owned the local lumberyard that I worked for 4 years, without me even knowing it at the time, his name's Tommy.
Yeah.
Paid for me to go to college.
That's a champion.
Wow.
And he's a champion, you know. So honor where honor's due. That's why I wanted to slip that in if that's okay.
And aren't
Love
you
it.
grateful for the people that took a chance and invested in you? You know,
Praise God.
That's the thing and I think that's really what stems from your passion for Traits of a Champion, is because of, we aim to be champions. None of us sit here and say we've arrived but we're trying to be champions for the Lord and for in all areas of our life. But man, the thing that sometimes when life kicks you down or gets you down that keeps me going are the people that have poured into my life.
Well,
It's
if you got victory, why not live like a champion?
That's right.
You know?
That's it. That's
exactly.
it. We win. We're the win is ours. So, well, man, hey, folks, thank you. Brent, thank you.
you,
It's
sir.
an honor
Thank you.
to have you and to be a part of this. I promise you're going to run this back several times and get several of these quotes because they were so good for being a part of that. Kevin, please follow us, all that good stuff, right?
You can follow us on Instagram. We're now on TikTok, and Real Leaders.
I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah,
that
right?
caught me off guard.
We are. We're
the way
on
you said
TikTok.
that, though, we're on TikTok.
Well,
like it was
TikTok.
like it's like
yeah,
a
let me tell you
thing,
something.
you know?
That and the latest dance.
Yeah.
Nice.
So we're on there, and so YouTube, of course, and Instagram, all those things. Of course, on Facebook as well. So you can follow us on all those social media. But then, of course, I want you to follow my friend Brent Crowe. Brent, I'm sure, is on all social media. He'll be collaborating.
Just IG, just Instagram.
Instagram.
That's it. Just
Okay. Well, you can follow SLU.
at Brent
How
A.
about
Crowe.
that?
That's
You can
it.
follow
Yep.
SLU on all their
SLU
platforms, and but follow Brent as well. He'll be collaborated on all these videos and things like that as well. So it'll be a good chance for you to catch that content. Share that content for us. Get the word out there. We look forward to the next few episodes. Got a lot of fun guests coming up, so stay tuned.
God bless you.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Traits of a Champion podcast, helping you pursue the wins in life. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to hit subscribe. You can also follow along with us on Facebook, Instagram, or watch our episodes on YouTube.